Right, folks, so here's that, fancy schmancy picture. And we're going to come up right up here to the mess hall where it says now open. And I don't know what's open here, but this looks like a garage. And it's empty. And you can see that's a far building. And you can see when we walk up here, look at this. Metal. Because there's windows. Metal. Complete empty. All these empty buildings, but it says now open. Oh, look at this cement. More cement and more metal. It's like a little fortress here.
Let me tell people so having what you see here is what they call family fusion centers. You see them usually at the borders, but now you're seeing them more and more come into the inland. These are for families or dissidents, but they want to say families. Everything's happy. It's called happy money. And now, what they tell their workers, it's like they tell medical workers, oh, the vaccines are for nuclear fallout and everyone has to have the nanochips so we know where everyone is, in case of a natural disaster, etc., etc. Well, they tell these people the same thing. If and when these corporate global communists take power, and certainly California's been castrated from anything Bill of Rights, anything constitutional, liberty, freedom, that people like you, myself, my colleagues, my friends, well, we have a nice little happy little fun zone for us where you feel, where you're quite confused sometimes whether you're in a family-friendly place or you're in San Quentin prison. So these things all flip around in a maximum lockdown because these people don't play around. Now, what we know in Sacramento, in the northern part of California, and we have exposed it earlier on, 7 months ago, they're putting all these cages everywhere. They're putting cages, just lines and lines of cages. Well, that's going to be a nice little family fun zone for the Pelosi clan, don't you think? I don't mind working as the warden when that happens. So it works both ways. Careful what you wish for, because this ain't no Europe. This is America, and we're coming for you. On the early hours of February 15th, 2:45 a.m., we saw a woman outside of our window at 2:45 a.m., February 15th, pushing a stroller. And she was pushing a child, looking up at the windows as she was passing around a hotel, 2:45, doing laps, looking up and whistling.
So we're relaxing after the show, after the round table and everything, and I hear this whistling outside. Okay. I hear whistling again. Well, that's bizarre. You know, it's late. It's kind of a dark alley behind the hotel. Why would somebody be whistling? Our window was open and the light was on. So I walked up there to go have a cigarette. It was actually about a minute or two after I'd heard the whistling, but didn't expect anybody to be down there actually. And then there's this woman, and so I'm thinking, okay, she's a homeless woman. She's got a stroller that she pushing around her recycles in, like most of them do. And she says, "Hello." I said, "Hi. How are you?" Fine. And she starts walking away, and you hear a kid start to like make noise, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, "Yo, Dean, there's a lady back here right now that's pushing a kid in a stroller that was just whistling up at the window at this time in the morning. You don't think she's trying to sell that kid, do you?" And he's like, "Let's go." I'm like, "Go where?" And he's like, "Let's go down and check it out." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, man." I'm like, "All right." So, put on my shoes, grab my jacket, start to walk down, and I don't know, Dean was taking his time, and I got out there a little bit before him, and as I walk out the door, I see this woman talking to this guy that, you know, as Dean describes, it looked like like he was affiliated with, other people, and I thought it was the weirdest pair. Like, why would she be talking to him at this time of night in front of this hotel? But okay, so I go and I sit down where the bench is because they had a designated smoking area, and wait for Dean. As Dean comes out, he sees just that guy, and he sees the woman walking away from him, but he didn't know they were talking, and so he comes up. I'm like, "Dean, I'm over here," and so he comes over, and I'm like, "Yeah," I'm like, "She was just talking to that guy," and he's like, "That's weird." I'm like, "Yeah," and so then she's walking down the sidewalk, and I'm like, all fine and dandy if we're telling people about this, but number one thing they're going to say is, what did they look like? Walk by him, and I wanted her to walk by me, so I say, "Oh, you can go ahead. I don't want to get smoke on you guys." And she says, "Oh no, that's okay. I smoke in front of him all the time."
Here's the video of us going up to the woman.
"Oh, you can go ahead. I don't want to get smoke on you."
Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, as you saw, Brandon trying to make contact with her, and then she's okay. And then we go around the corner, we come back, and now she's fidgeting with her wallet, like she can't get in the door. And she had her phone, like she said, so she's trying to call somebody. So I start talking to her. She goes, "I can't get in, and I have a key." Now I knew damn well that the front entrance of the hotel is wide open, sliding glass door. You don't need a key to get in, but you want to get on the side. She said she's there with her son, and she can't get a hold of him. I looked at her phone. She's playing Scrabble. So if I was lost, I wouldn't be playing Scrabble. I'd be calling people left and right. So at that point, I knew she was kind of lying, but I just, I've never been in this situation.
I'm like, "Oh, okay then." So I keep walking. Then the guy that was sitting down right outside the front door of the hotel on the bench with the tattoo on next to his eye starts rushing up behind me. And I'm like, "Oh, great." And then apparently Dean started to walk up too, and so then that guy kind of fell back, and I thought he was gonna try and run up on me, but he didn't. And so then I walked around the corner and then talked to Dean as this vehicle pulls in. Very, very nice vehicle. And I'm like, that's peculiar. And so then we walked back to the front, and Dean says, "Oh, are you trying to get in?" and starts talking to her, and you know, he's gonna let her in that side door. And I walk back to the front. As I'm walking to the front, then I just decided to go back up to the room, and it's frightening that even right now, just telling the recount of the story, it's difficult and it's making me uncomfortable, and I'm still worried about the repercussions. But I guess if that's what, if it's in his will for me to go, then that's what it is. But hopefully it's not. But it is what it is, and you know, I just can't believe that this is happening right here.
Footage, and I did a Google search and a DuckDuckGo search on missing children all across America. And although this was in Los Angeles, there was a missing child from New York that is identical to this child. Absolutely identical.
And clearly he didn't belong to that lady or the MS-13 character. You know, you don't need a DNA test to tell me that. Okay, so look at that face, look at the eyebrows, everything. Here it is. And I must tell you, that is the exact same kid who I saw up close. And I turned pale white. I was shocked. I'm like, oh, dear me. Everybody, I think, in the room. And so now, understanding this, so this is now Monday, February 15th. I want to say about 10 o'clock at night, Pacific Standard Time. We're now discovering this, and we're thinking, what the hell are we going to do? What am I going to do? You know, it's one thing to talk about all these atrocities around the world. It's another thing to be, you know, right in the middle of them. So I'm going to play you an audio piece of 2 doors down from my hotel. And we know who the people are next door.
So it's the same night. It's actually, it seems like it's the next day because it was so early in the morning when we had saw the woman. But so later that day, pretty much the next day, you hear all these commotions going on, and it was frightening. I don't get scared very easily, but it was pretty frightening, I have to say. I've never heard somebody talk so gnarly, so forcefully, so hard to put into words, but I could tell there was something that was going to happen. I think how Dean describes it as, you know, Mr. Wallace, I think that's a pretty accurate description.
But this is what we heard later that night. He was speaking to an underling who's one of the traffickers. Okay, so now we've established there's trafficking happening here, and what you don't hear in that is you hear like a hammer on somebody's head, and then you hear choking.
Hear all this happen, and I'm like, whew, I am not staying here. So I order an Uber, and then, you know, it was something like 12, 13 minutes out, which, you know, you can order the one that waits that long, or you can order the fast one. I ordered the fast one because I wanted to get the hell out of there, but it was still that long. And so then about 6 minutes into it, all of a sudden,
after that happens, we are freaked out. Now we're getting the hell out of there. We're freaked out, like, we got to go. We just heard a murder. After this goes on, we're like, we're out of here. We have the Uber driver now. This happens immediately after that. Okay, this is fire. Document. This fire. Right here. Yeah. We're good. Push. It's crazy. Yeah, I'm not the best documentarian, you know, when I'm trying to remember, oh God, what do I need to bring? You know, all these things. So
this alarm is just screaming in our ears. So we're scrambling. I grab my computer. Dean grabs his computer. And, you know, we're out the door. But it still took us a couple minutes to do that. And, you know, I thought they would maybe come and say, like, hey, you guys got to get out of here because we're making sure, you know, what else do we need? And so we go out the door, look to the right, and that guy's there holding his door open, just standing there like he's waiting for somebody. I thought he was waiting for us. I started to walk down the hallway. I did not turn around after I saw him. I just did a quick glance. Come up to where the elevators are, and there's another hallway that goes all the way to about the same distance, because it makes a big L, the hotel. And that whole hallway was billowing with smoke. Lots and lots of smoke. And so we go right to the stairway, start going down the stairs, and halfway down, because we were on the third level, I think it was about halfway down too, here comes a guy with a bicycle, a mountain bike, that he's going up the stairs with. And I'm like, there's smoke up there. Like, it's not a false alarm I'm pretty much conveying. And his response is, I know. So I'm like, okay, like, right on, man. You know, you must have something important up there or something. And then get out to the parking lot, and there's, you know, kids screaming, and everybody's pretty much already out there. We're one of the last people to actually get to the parking lot. And I noticed there's a woman coming up when she's got, you know, this, like, the tray where it's got, like, the handle in the middle, it's plastic, and then it's got things on both sides, and, you know, there's all the cleaning tools in there, and she's making a beeline right to the door. And it was eerie. And I'm like, whoa. And I tried to motion to Dean, and he was in his own world. We were, you know, it was pretty intense. And so you know, it was tough to communicate at the time, and so I just continued on my way, and walking down the sidewalk, and there's a kind of a fat kid right there, and it's like he was waiting for somebody, this guy, and he comes walking around the corner with his sweatshirt, and it's covering his hand, and his hand is like he's pointing a gun at everybody as he's walking by to a vehicle. I would imagine in case anybody tried to stop him, he wasn't going to be stopped. And so I just continued on my way. I did not look at him again. I like tried to, you know, I just didn't even stop to have Dean or try to communicate it with Dean. I just kept going. We get to his vehicle, and it's still very intense. You know, everybody's very high emotions, and there's like 4 to 6 fire engines already in the parking lot, and I guess the fire captain comes up in his red Suburban and parks, you know, a few spots down from us, taking his time getting his stuff on, his gear and whatnot. And this guy comes up with a camera on a tripod. I thought it was a stringer, but it was a large camera with a tall tripod, and he points it right at Dean and I. And I'm like, okay. And then leaves it there for maybe 30 seconds or a minute, and then pulls the camera off, folds the tripod up, and takes the camera away.
So as I'm trying to do inventory in my head, Brandon's taking all, you know, the surroundings in his head. So I'm doing inventory, he's doing surroundings. Now, let me tell you what I wish to God I would have captured as we were going down the fire escape in the hotel 10 minutes after the murder. It was an underlink. It was one of the traffickers who really screwed up on some operation. I don't know. We're going down the stairs, and a guy coming up the stairs had a bicycle. And I told him, I said, there's a fire. And he goes, I know. Oh, good. Okay. Because it looks like you don't know, or you're up to something else. Connected to him, right behind him, is a woman with 2 cleanup kits. So 2 people are running to the fire as we're running away from the fire. And just so you know, they're not, you know, none of them were firefighters at all. So they had 2 cleanup kits, you know, like Clorox and duct tape and all kinds of stuff that you would see, and, you know, again, that Mr. Wolf in that movie would do when he would clean up a murder scene. So as we're coming out of the hotel, there is somebody with a video camera, and then another person who has like a sweatshirt over what it appeared to be a firearm. And we're like, oh God, now we're out of there. Now the Uber's there and the fire engines are all there. And let me see if I can pull this up, because the firefighters are now coming, about 4 or 5 fire engines. And the weird thing about the fire engines is that they block the entrance and the exit out of the hotel, in and out of the hotel. That was from my car, which my car was dead. The battery died as we're leaving, and nobody's allowed to leave, and the entire hotel is evacuated. The Uber comes. This is what happens. The Uber picks us up. He starts asking a lot of questions. And then he says, or he keeps telling us how tired he is, how tired, lethargic. Oh God, I just need to pull over. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you, the driver? Are you the same driver for like Princess Diana? Just go. So he goes, and then he drops us off at a Motel 6, just to gather our thoughts and get the hell out of what we just, you know, experienced and heard. As soon as he does that, this guy, this Uber, turns his lights off, goes to the gas station directly across from the Motel 6, turns his lights off, parks there, and watches us. Well, that's a hell of a time to go stargazing. Oh, no, he's not stargazing. He's looking at us. And then Brandon went to go check who the guy is. You know, on the Uber profiles, you have to have a profile. You have to have a picture, you know, all the things to be a driver, I would assume, unless you just be anonymous, then that'd be not Uber. But this is what we saw when we look back at his profile there in Uber. Yeah, he's deleted. He deletes his profile, you know, his name, probably fake, but yeah, he's deleted. And people are like, well, why haven't you called the police? Why not call one of the hotlines right away? Let's get real about this. John Podesta and Chelsea Clinton, they set up a lot of these hotlines to intercept these type of calls. Go look at the witnesses to the Vegas massacre. Look what happened to them. They all decided to kill themselves. So I'm not going to be another statistic, because I understand how these things go. And look, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but I'm the right guy to be there, because you know, I study these things for a very long time, and I knew that on some level, because even the police chief or the fire chief that was there, things did not look right. There was an EMT, there was a paramedic van in this parking lot of the hotel 24/7. Gee, wonder why. Is somebody like getting hurt or dying all the time? So just to sum it up, and there's a lot more I'm leaving out, is what has happened to me in the past week in this at a hotel, relocating, scouting some different places out, and we found that we were just right in the center of a major child trafficking hub with cold-blooded killers all around us. Cold-blooded killers all around us. Detective Cagney, it is good to have you here. Please tell me, how did you get involved in this ongoing case?
I was watching your show, and you did a segment on some underground trafficking that you were aware of, or you thought that you were aware of, that was happening in Orange County. And it was after that that I started digging into it just a bit deeper. And I have, obviously, I am a retired officer, but I still have friends that are on the force throughout the United States. So I contacted some friends of mine and asked them to do a little investigating on the site that you were speaking about. At that point, we discovered that you really did discover something that is actually happening there. Of course, I think many people know that Anaheim is a center for trafficking, especially in California, but really one of the larger trafficking centers in the United States. I think after that, you and I exchanged a few texts, and I told you that I wanted to send some undercover agents to the area in the evening, late hours, just to do some scouting. And I believe at that time, that's when you and I talked a little bit about the tunnel. So my background in police department comes from the fact that I am the fourth generation of police officers in my family. There's only one actually not an officer, and that was my father. The rest of the relatives were on the police departments of various locations. I don't want to disclose exactly where that was, but that they were all involved. And even growing up as a kid, I grew up with the stories of what was happening, many investigations, and that was the dinner table conversation. Even though I'm no longer an officer, I still do investigations.
You watched the original footage of this whole thing. When you saw the footage, describe the turn of events that I was sharing with everyone when you first heard it. Was it like shocking? Because of course you've seen all kinds of different scenarios, you know, being from a long line of detectives and police and being in the force yourself. Was this a very unusual case at first that was kind of hard to believe until you actually got involved?
The elevator scene that took place and the noises that you heard in the vicinity, that piqued my interest because it's not something that's normal that happens in decent hotel. I mean, we're not talking motel, no-tell here. We were talking major chain, and it's not normal activity. And also not that far from Disney. I think watching what you were going through and feelings that you were feeling is what really pulled me into this whole scenario. After watching the show, and I told you that I was going to get in touch with people if it was okay with you. I didn't want to step on your toes, given the fact that this is a very sensitive issue. And you said it was fine. So I reached out to some friends of mine that were detectives out in the area of Orange County, at which time they said, okay, well, we'll take a look at it. We'll go there in the evening and we'll stake it out and see if we see anything. Well, lo and behold, absolutely everything that you said, they did see. What I'd like to start with, first of all, is they did identify the grated area that you had walked over to and showed that it looked like it was an underground tunnel of some sort, and they verified it was true. However, on first inspection, they found that those grates were locked and they could not get in. They were going to try to examine that tunnel a bit, but they couldn't. There was a padlock there. So, okay, they went back and they had binoculars and they scoped out the front of the hotel, and they said, yes, there was a lot of action that happened there, which was a little strange because it wasn't normal tourist type of action. But given the area, they thought, maybe there's drug trafficking going on. It could be numerous things. So over the course of the next week, they went there every evening, two guys with binoculars, and what they observed were incoming and outgoing vans, and they would see the vans pull into the front of the hotel, and then the vans would like go around the back of the building, which is let's call it an alley type of a looking area, not an area that vans would go to, not a cargo drop-off area, not a loading zone. The dock is located in a different area of that hotel. And they couldn't get close enough without being seen, but these vans they saw go in and out, and they also saw that these vans would go from the hotel to the grated area of let's call it the tunnel area. So they decided they needed to take another modicum here, and they have a woman that dressed as she was homeless because she could then get closer to the hotel to see if she could see where were these vans going around the backside of the hotel that these two gentlemen could not see with their binoculars. So the first night, the woman was there and she just moseyed around like a homeless person around the front and the back of the hotel. And lo and behold, in the back of the hotel, extremely dark circumstances. Again, I have to stress that it is not a loading zone. It is not a dock. But there were two vans, one that is tan and one that appeared to be either light blue or a light gray. Hard to tell in the lighting that's over by the hotel. And she noticed that the vans would park there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then the vans would leave. Well, unbeknownst to her, those vans were then going to the tunnel access. And they parked there for 5 or 10 minutes, and they were making the circle of going from the hotel to the tunnel, back to the hotel, back to the tunnel. So she got close enough only to see that one of the guys that was in driving one of the vans was the same gentleman that you identified in the elevator. At which point those gentlemen basically told her she had to get out of there. She was homeless. Get out of here. You don't belong here. So of course she left. When she got back with the two guys that were watching with binoculars, they decided to then walk over to the tunnel since the vans had actually left the area. And what they observed there, Dean, was the grate was locked. However, from the night before, there was nothing in the tunnel. This particular night that they were there, what they could identify approximately 15 to 20 feet into the tunnel was a woman's shoe. This is the part that was extremely startling to me and to them as well. in assuming, why would there, if you can't get in there, how did a woman's shoe suddenly appear, just one shoe, and it was either light beige or pale pink shoe, be in this tunnel? This prompted them to want to do further investigation because the shoe was not there the day before. The gates are locked. So how can somebody get in and out if someone is not opening up the gates and allowing traffic, meaning people, someone walking, to be able to get through? It's impossible physically to be able to fit through that grate as a human. You could not fit in between the bars of that gate. So what we found over the course of, I want to say it was maybe a 3-week investigation period, was that this was repeated often. The van transporting from the back of the hotel to this particular tunnel, but we were never able to get close enough to see anything. But one evening, the gentleman that was in your video, from the elevator scene, seemed to be staring in the direction of where my guys were located. And my guys left quickly because they didn't want any confrontation. After that evening, there was no further actions taking place at that hotel. It completely stopped. There were no more vans. There was no more movement. Everything went completely black. There was nothing. Brandon had given us a license plate number, and we ran the plate number, and we found out that it belonged to a person that's living in the Nickerson projects, which, if you're familiar with it, that's a pretty shady area at 114th and Central approximately. And that is the same vehicle that was in and out of that hotel continually. Furthermore, the person that was driving the vehicle also had a motorcycle and was seen on numerous occasions, it coming in and out of the hotel and basically just driving the perimeter, more or less like he was the scout. This particular guy would drive the perimeter of the parking lot. He would go in that alleyway behind the hotel, and then he would park it and he'd go back in. Then maybe 30 minutes later, he would come out and do the same thing. This is when my guys started really feeling like maybe the observers were being observed.
What we did see was an EMT truck in the parking lot before the fire that was just parked there. That was their place to park. But the license plate of the motorcycle belonged to, I want to say, the darker complexion fella, not at the same hotel, but at the other hotel that he later stayed at, which that guy was frequenting up and down all hours of the day. And he saw him at 3 a.m. take out a pink, what seemed to be little girl's backpack out of his trunk at 3 a.m. in the morning.
We identified that darker person was the same person that was doing the scouting of the parking lot on anywhere from 20 to 30 minute intervals. Now, if this person is actually, let's assume this person works for the hotel. There is no reason that a person every 20 to 30 minutes who works in a hotel would come out, get on their motorcycle, drive the parking lot, drive behind the hotel, and then go back into the hotel and work again and come out every 20 minutes. I mean, even if you smoke, you're not having a cigarette break every 20 to 30 minutes. And this happened every night that my guys were there. Every night, the same person. And it's the same person. We have positively identified the photograph to the person on the motorcycle and also to a person who was one of the drivers of the vans.
The interesting thing is we found out he's a security guard at the particular hotel that we stayed at. What doesn't make sense is if he's a security guard there, why is he frequenting the other hotel that's not part of the chain of this hotel if he indeed is security guarding?
In my lifetime, I have never known of a security guard who is on duty, who part of his duty is to then get on a motorcycle and drive around a parking lot every 20 minutes. It's that they walk, but they certainly don't get on their motorcycle. because I would assume they wouldn't want to draw attention to themselves with the noise of the motorcycle. And furthermore, coming and going out of the driveway that enters into the hotel in 20 to 30 minutes, why would you leave the property? I mean, you would leave the property and come back on the property, drive around the parking lot, drive around the back of the hotel, park your motorcycle and go back in. Not normal behavior. But I also want to call attention to the fact that these vans that the homeless woman, let's call her that, saw, windowless vans, more like a cargo van. It would normally lead a person to say, well, you know, maybe they're dropping off delivery for the morning. However, we go back to the point that where the vans were parked behind the hotel was absolutely, positively not the dock where you would make or receive deliveries. It was a back door. And the way the vans were parked, you could not see what was going on when the door was opened or closed. And why then would a van go from a back door, two vans, and then back into the let's call it the FEMA tunnel area? Why would they do that? And they would do it nightly or every other night. And one time there's a couple of days in between where they weren't there, but then they were back in full force. What were they bringing from the hotel to the tunnels? What? And then the biggest question comes in, why then was there a woman's shoe?
What we discovered is not only is that the FEMA Fusion center area that we showed, but that hangar that was on the same property, it was size of maybe 2 football fields, was also doing, it's related to FEMA. So did they verify it is indeed a FEMA zone area?
I don't think that we could say that they positively identified that it is a FEMA zone. Those type of things generally are kept hush-hush. And, I don't want to insinuate that the police department is corrupt there, but there is corruption throughout the United States. And therefore, that type of information would not be something that would be, let's say, public information, nor would have been supplied to my guys. They would have no part in knowing that. That would be more covert operations. I would assume, though, given the location, that is a FEMA operation. But if it's FEMA, then why are they taking vans into that gated, let's call it gated area, and it's locked up? Why?
I was doing the Real Deal report in, I want to say April, from about April to May of 2020. And we really covered the underground tunnel system, and it really stemmed from Tustin, that entire area there, right in the central Orange County, which was the exit of the tunnels. Because I had some other examinations where the beginning, the entrance is really in Long Beach Harbor, which I want to say from that area is about 15, 20 miles, which means in LA time, that's about a 5-hour drive. So we discovered there is an underground tunnel system, and it goes throughout in the entire Los Angeles region, the entire area there, and it goes all the way, up the coast. And so it would make sense that the van would stock up on their possessions, so their children or their trafficking victims. The suitors or the buyers would fly in through the John Wayne Airport, which is literally 5 minutes away from the hotel. Come to the hotel, purchase, do whatever they got to do, pay, and then they transport the child somewhere else throughout the underground system under the guise of FEMA.
They'll probably have people inside the hotel with the goods, which are being put into the vans, which are backing into the graded area. And then the people are being forced out of the van and into those tunnels to walk to whatever area that tunnel takes them to. And again, and I hate to keep harping on the same thing, day one, there's nothing. There's a little bit of garbage around there, nothing. Day two, it's cleared out. Day three, there's a shoe. Day four, the shoe's gone. Who cleaned the shoe? Who picked it up? So somebody was trying to get rid of any evidence that was there, because my guys were going to try and get a pole and try and with like a net on the end of it to try and get that shoe out of the tunnel that they saw. But the next day it was completely gone. So obviously it's an area that's being used for transporting something, and that's coming from that hotel into that gated tunnel, and it's happening via those vans. But why then, Dean, my question is after several weeks of this going on, as you and I know, we've talked about this, did it suddenly stop? Were my guys detected? Were feelers put out that perhaps somebody's onto them? Did somebody hear the Real Deal report and report back to somebody that, hey, whatever covert operations you have going on over there, it's being watched, and therefore it stopped and it's been moved to another location?
The initial reactions of people in these situations, this is very, very cinematic turn of events, that I experienced. You're used to seeing this on the silver screen, so therefore everyone's an expert.
Homeland Security are at the land, sea, and airports of this country, working hard to keep you safe. If you see something, say something is more than just a slogan. Something suspicious while traveling that doesn't look quite right, say something to the proper authorities right away to protect you and your fellow travelers. Have a safe flight.
What we realized and noticed right off the bat was that the security of the hotel had really been involved. I mean, we heard the walkie-talkies. I mean, everybody was scouting around. Even the day after, when I returned to pick up my possessions and cars, there were people scouting around the entire parking lot. And based on that, plus based on the entire operation at hand, I mean, we believe we heard a homicide that involves some very high-powered people, that calling the authorities, per se, was almost calling the Grim Reaper to come and just sweep me off my feet at that time.
The fact that during the fire were the possibility of it being two cleaners coming in after it was a homicide. It was an extremely dangerous situation.
Cartels were drug trafficking organizations, which no longer is just the case. They saw the money involved in human trafficking and human smuggling. They completely took over. And when they take over, they act accordingly to how the cartels operate, which is with violence, intimidation, coercion, everything else that that the cartels are known for. And the cartels don't care. It's a commodity. It's like this chair that I'm sitting on. That's what they see, that child. All they want is the money to be paid for that child.
In the Bible, it says that stupid people go towards danger. And I let them know that, well, it's that may be true, but when danger comes to you, then what are you supposed to do? And when that danger involves a child, they can't fight for themselves or fend for themselves or say anything for themselves, let alone, then what are you supposed to do? And at what point does ignoring it make you become part of the problem? And, neither Dee nor I asked for this, expected anything like this to ever happen, but we were confronted with it straight in the face and had to make our decisions in real time. We couldn't stop or think about it or, ponder it. It was happening right then. And for what we've done, for what Dean's done, I believe that we acted in a noble way. And I believe that we made our decisions based upon if we were in the situation or it was somebody that we knew. And just because we don't know them, so many people have told me, it's not your kid, what are you doing? Yeah, well, it is somebody's kid. And if it was me or if it was you, or if it was your kid, wouldn't you want somebody else to do something that was in that situation? It's kind of like that show, you know, what would you do? And I feel we've been tested and we know what we would do. We stepped up to the plate and we did everything we could. We made the smartest decisions at the time. The ramifications from that, maybe they'll come back to bite us in the ass. But you know what? We weren't snooping around. We were in our hotel room. It came to us. And if people are being that loud about their business, if they're that comfortable about something that's that illegal, that's a scary thing for everybody. That's a scary thing for society. That's a scary thing for people. A lot of people like to think, hey, here's what I would do. But until you're actually in the situation, your life's actually on the line, people are actually following you, do you think you would still be so brave? Hopefully you would. But I don't regret anything that I've done or any decisions that I've made. In fact, I'm proud of the decisions I've made, and I can sleep at night. I hope that's not the same for them.
That picture of the elevator with the woman with the guy with the gun, that in itself, I can't believe that Brandon at that point was not grabbed by these people. It was the right thing by not calling the local authorities, because unfortunately, you know, the force is full of corrupt people. And I think that would have been alerting them sooner, where we wouldn't have even gotten any further investigation to shut down the operation at that particular location. It was only because we were able to have people scouting from far enough away with binoculars and go day after day after day to see if the same scenario was happening over and over, that we could say that, yes, there's something that did definitely take place there. But what we have witnessed and what Dean and Brandon witnessed is definitely not that. It's not buying a gram of Coke. It's not getting a lady for the night. It's definitely deeper than that. And I think that the fact that it's close to the tunnels and the fact that the vans were going to and from those tunnels tells me that there is human trafficking involved.
Surrounded by the busy borders of Disneyland and the booming business economy of Orange County is Harbor Boulevard, a hotspot for human trafficking.
It's everywhere. Think about it this way. It occurs on the street. It occurs in motels. In hotels from very low end to very high end. You have it occurring through illegal escort agencies at adult clubs. Each of them is huge. So you can imagine the extent of the problem here in Orange County.
We could say that, yes, there's something that definitely did take place there.